Okay, now we're starting the recording. So thank you everyone for attending our workshop. Today is the UC applications writing the personal insight question. So just under an hour ago, the UC Davis team presented to our students about the UC personal insight questions. It was amazing. Hopefully you were all able to attend that, but we wanted to follow it up with our own Los Altos additional workshop. And so that's what you're here to hear right now. So the agenda is just debriefing quickly about the UC Personal Insight Question Workshop. Ms. Price is going to walk you through that. We're going to review the essay prompts, kind of talk again about some possibilities that you might write about. If you have questions or thoughts, please, again, put them in the chat and then we can pause and sort of respond to those. But hopefully you've had time to digest what the UC Davis team talked about at the 11 o'clock session. And then we're also going to talk to you about getting started. So there was a lot of encouragement about thinking about the prompts and starting, but we're going to give you some tangible, what are next steps? How do you reach out to us for more support? What does that look like? How are we available to meet with you? And then I'm going to go over the activities list. So it was mentioned briefly that the activities list is a part of the application, but I'm going to give you some more details on that and give you an action item there. And then the last thing I'm going to go over is just a little bit more about researching the different college campuses and some different resources that you have for your college research. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Miss Price, and she's going to take it from here.
Hi, welcome all of you. I'm sorry that my video is out of whack a little bit. Some of you, your names are familiar from my meetings with you already. So hopefully at the end of this, before it closes out, I'll get to say hi in person. The role of the PIQs in the UC application is clearly just to let the admissions office know more about you besides your grades. It used to be besides grades and testing, but we now know the UCs do not require testing. So in fact, the essays become very prominent in part of their discussion about who you are and how you will be a fit on their different campuses. I think that it's important that you understand that it also is your voice. You don't have a voice in the application unless you're writing. And I can tell you from experience, when a student writes an essay, a statement, or prompt to the admissions application, and they're heard in the committee, it's the words that admissions directors will read directly from a student's essay to convey to the rest of the committee who that student is. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. And editing and revisions are noted. So you want them, to see you in a good way. And I think that it doesn't mean that it's like a English essay, as they mentioned in the earlier presentation. They're not looking for you, to write a book report or to write an assessment or an argument to the point. They just want you to tell them who you are. And they want to see your best selves in these PIQs. And they only can be done by you. They're not going to be compared to each other. It's not if you write about athletics and your friend write about athletics, there are too many athletic essays. No, it won't be too many because everyone should be different. Every essay should be coming from the heart of you, which makes your stamp on that essay no matter what you're talking about. And I think that, as you speak in your essays, whether it's geographical differences or ethnic differences or cultural differences, sometimes that information shows up in those essay prompts, and that is perfectly fine too. You will be showing and not telling them who you are, okay? And here's the do's and don'ts. Do not write about a challenge unless you have something meaningful. So in my experience, students sometimes believe that having a B instead of all A's is a challenge. That's not a challenge in terms of your college PIQ for the UCs. Don't choose prompt 8 unless you have something truly exceptional. And Olympian, cured cancer, the athletic top in the should be something that distinguishes you so much so from anybody else in the pool. Because from my experience, what shows up in the pool in number 8 are people who are exactly that, Olympians, the number 1 soccer player in the country, the number 1 swimmer in the country or the state. They have already been working on some scientific research that has their name on it. So you really want to be careful by using prompt 8. It's not anything you want to write about. You really should be writing about something significant that refers to you and what you've done, okay? And you don't want to be generic. You definitely want to be detail specific. I remember in my some of my appointments to all of you mentioning that you have to give them details that are not going to be able, that they can't pick up from your grades or anything else in the file. It will only be shown in your essays. You want to be very detail oriented and not, generic. You want your eyes. A lot of eyes are going to be in there. I did, I saw, I moved. It's going to be all about you. And you don't have too many friends or too many people editing your work. What happens when students allow other students to look at their work? It becomes something where students are reevaluating each other. None of you have gone to college. None of you have seen a college essay in admissions. So I think it's really important that you ask a grown-up to review your essay. This is not an essay for your English class or your history class. This is an essay for grown people who really want to know who you are besides academics. And I think that your parents would know, someone who's known you since you were very young, your godmother would know. Miss Duran and I have had lots of experience in reviewing essays, so I hope that you would share with us. Your teachers, if they have time, will look at your essays. But you really don't want to have a running thread of your buddies commenting on your essay prompts, okay? This is something that's going to go out into the UC system-wide, and it needs to have your stamp on it and any other feedback from people who know what admissions requires, who have looked at admissions applications or essays, or someone who knows you really, really well, like your parents or your godparents or friends you had, since you were like 2 years old. But editing those essays should be strictly with people who have read papers, who have done this type of work before, because that's what's going to matter at the end of the day. They're not going to edit you out of your essay. And that's what's so important with having someone who's a grown-up, who've been to college, or someone who's in the working field to read your essays instead of friends. And the do's. You want to brainstorm, you want to think about what you want to write. There's lots of opportunities, lots of options. You don't want to limit yourself. So you're only going to find out those different things that you can write about by just sort of brainstorming about, looking at one essay and figuring out what I can write about, and several different ways that you can write that essay about your experience. So you want to brainstorm, as much as possible, your topics, again, with someone, a grown-up, a counselor, Ms. Duran, myself, your teachers if they have time. And so you want someone, to help you brainstorm who's used to this type of process and will help get you through it. You want to make drafts. Sometimes kids have to write these essays over and over again. If anyone has worked with me before, I don't think I worked with any juniors, only the seniors this year, that it was a process. The student would put something in there and I'd come back again and ask a few more questions, because the goal is to make sure you answer that prompt completely. So you want to have drafts, and you want to send it to someone who can help you, write the best final draft of your essay. And write from your heart and personal experience. Be you. There's no, students always ask me, well, how can I, show that, I'm the one that should be chosen? And I think that you can only do that by being you. You're going to write the you essay, basically. It's about who you are, what you care about, what you think, how you've gotten through things, but it's all about you and not anything to do with your parents or your friends or even your teachers. Many of the prompts will ask you, how did you handle this? And they're really interested in how you handled it. So you have to write from your heart. A good friend of mine from Yale said that in every statement, every essay you write for college, you should show your best self. And I believe in that. And the kids who do that do well in this process. And we want you to start now. We use this date, Mr. Rand and I, to be the kickoff date for our UC essay workshops, because we wanted you to hear from the expert, from Miss David and her team. And we wanted you to be able to go straight to your Google Doc and start thinking and creating and choosing your prompts. And, and that's what we're going to help you do. So we want you to get started. This is the official start date where you start working on your UC essays and your activities for the UCs. We want you to start now. So she discussed the essays, and we'll go over them here. The first essay was about leadership and how you foster mentorship, creative tension, group action, things that happen not necessarily at the top of a program, but you could be a person in that club. You could be a secretary. You could be the public relations person for that club, or in student government, or a club you started for yourself or join with others, you don't have to be the person who started the club or the person who runs the club. You can be a member of that club and have a specific responsibility that you do well. So it's not limited to just having a title. I think that as you write about your leadership will show. That's one good thing about the leadership essay, that it can start out with you being a member or part of something, but it always will end taking responsibility and making a difference in that club and a difference in the community that you serve. If you're not involved in a club and you're, the oldest in your family, uh, you can always, kids will always start out talking about being the eldest and always be responsible for their siblings. And this year in particular with COVID, many siblings, older siblings, help their younger siblings with their academics, help them get through their studies this year. So I really think that every one of you will have some aspect of leadership and things that you've done. Camp counselor is a real good one, but also you don't have to be the counselor in the camp. You could be the counselor aide in the camp. So it's very open and very broad in terms of how the UCs look at a leadership role. And it will come down to your definition and how you articulate it in that prompt. The creative side. I've had students write essays about everything, from music to dance to karate in this essay. And, problem solve with math. I had one student who wrote creatively about how she uses her time and how that became something that she began to master as she became a high school student. So you can do anything creatively with this creative side essay. If you're a mathematician, you can do that. Politics, statistics, you can do that. History papers, that's all right too. How you wrote it, what you talked about. I think that what you need to understand is that the UCs create these prompts specifically to allow you to be you in these essays. So you can bring it to the table in terms of creativity and know that there's no wrong way to write it. And that's what, we're here to help you, guide you with that. And, if you write something that is not resonating with Miss Duran or myself or other grown-ups, then chances are it may not resonate with the UC admission staff as well, because they're grown-ups too. So we're going to be pushing you guys a little bit. And the number 3 is one that's very interesting. When students talk about their greatest talent or skill, I've had students, talk about listening as their greatest talent. I've had students talk about, athletics as their greatest talent. And it is, you have to convince the reader that is your greatest talent. Remember, it says your greatest one. It doesn't say one of many. It is the thing that defines you the most, your greatest thing that you do. And it could definitely be, instruments. You could create, model cars. It could be gardening. I had a student last year. She's at UCLA this year. She wrote about gardening. She loved gardening. Had the biggest vegetables in the world, but she didn't start out that way. So I think that, this is a wide open essay as well. Coding, math, magic tricks, is whatever you can convince the admissions office to believe that you feel that's your greatest accomplishment. And that's what it comes down to. And some of you may not have one, and that's okay. This may not be the essay for you, but it certainly should be something that demonstrates a certain ability and a level of competency that shows how great it is that how you're great at doing it. So keep in mind, it's your greatest skill, not someone else's, but yours. Educational opportunities and barriers. This has been a little difficult one for former students at Los Altos, because educational opportunities for a lot of kids, some kids can afford to go to, programs put on by Stanford or Yale or Harvard. They can take a class. A lot of students cannot afford to do that. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be something that you pay for. It could be anything that you learn something, an extra class that you took at De Anza or Foothill. It could be attending this summer summer school, because you needed to make up a class and there was an educational opportunity for you. You can talk about that. So educational opportunity could be anything that benefits you and take you to the next level of interest that you have out there. Educational barrier could be a lot of things. It could be, where you are a student that's disabled and you're not able to have certain opportunities because of your disability. It could be a physical or mental disability. It could be a student, again, who can't afford to go to a special class or attend a special session or to travel somewhere. These are barriers to education, just as much as physical and mental disabilities are, so are financial. So barriers could be anything that prevent you from accessing an opportunity in education, okay? In the classroom, it could be, or it could be outside the classroom. So you want to make sure that when you definitely brainstorming this one out, that you look at opportunities that you've taken on for yourself in school, outside of school, and then you look at barriers that may have prevented you from being able to take one of those opportunities. So that's where brainstorm is going to really come in when you have a question like this, where the UC asks you to choose one or the other, right? Some students say, well, Ms. Price, can I write about both? No, you really need to choose one of these and make sure that you can articulate the opportunity or the barrier, okay? Describe the most significant challenge. And again, it certainly is not getting a B when you've had all A's. That is not a significant challenge. I think that that's really important that you look at, look at your opportunities in life, look at where you come from, look at your school and see, has it been challenging for you in academics? Has it been challenging for you socially? So this is a challenge that could go across the spectrum of your life. It could be in school, outside of school, in your family, outside of your family. And I think that it's not, limited to problem solving, or novel thinking, or artistic expression. It's anything that you feel that you've had a difficulty with and that you can articulate it. It comes
Sorry,
all.
just to interrupt really quickly. I think I accidentally, I cut and paste the wrong thing there. So,
Yeah, that's okay.
but you got it. Listen to Miss Price. Don't look at what's written there. I'll update the slides.
And so I think that, you have to make sure it's a significant challenge. And I think that some kids have done that, experienced those things this year in particular with COVID. And not that COVID, affected you medically or anything, but it could have affected you in every other way, where you weren't as motivated, where you got behind in classes, where you, could not see your friends. That was a significant challenge for a lot of kids, not being able to communicate, and just being frightened to death to live your life. That's a significant challenge this year. I think that, college is really open to hearing what you have to say, as long as you describe it well, as long as you articulate it well, and that it affects you, okay? Academic subject that inspires you. All across the spectrum. And it doesn't, again, have to be an AP class. I think some of the kids asked this in the big session with Ms. David. It doesn't have to be an honors class. It could be anything academically that you're inspired by. History, English, math. It doesn't matter the level. It matters that the interest is there. And it matters what you do in the classroom as well as outside the classroom. Some students talked about, last year biology, and they also talked about a specific biology lab that they really related to within that class, okay? And so I think that you don't have to go outside looking for the inspiration. It could certainly be inside your classroom. But if you're able to go outside, say for instance, you are interested in biology and you could do a research project outside, that's fine too. Absolutely fine. But it's all about what you got, from that learning experience. And, your inner self, what makes you, why does it matter to you? And I think those questions will be in the brainstorming. You got to find out, can you articulate why it matters to you? Can you articulate how it became something that you were really interested in? And I think that's going to be a challenge with all of the essays. You really have to put yourself into it. Someone else can't do it for you. They can't suggest a topic for you. You have to feel the connection with this topic. And I challenge all of you to do that. Look in your own lives, look at what you've done, and bring that to the table. I think that, examples would be, your Latin class and falling in love with mythology, and reading extra books in mythology, psychology, taking a class in psychology, but also volunteering maybe at a center that work with kids that are, learning disabled, because that falls in abnormal psychology when kids have disabilities. Math, taking, math outside the classroom. You could be a math tutor because you're really great at it and you love it, and you love working with kids who like math. So I think that it's anything that you connect with academically, but also that you take it as inspire you to do things outside with it, whether that's to tutor someone, that's to take an extra class, that's to do research, that's to, resonate with a particular lab, stay after school, working on your project with other students. It all depends on how it inspires you. And it has to be an academic subject. I've had students ask me, can they write about, hockey or soccer? That's not an academic subject. So we are going to have you stick to academic subjects, which will be your English, your history, How you take that outside is totally fine. You could be a math student and want to and do robotics. You can be a computer science student and do robotics, but you start with the academic subject first. And I think we have 2 more. So improve school or community, really broad for all of you. Some of you have been really involved in school and you were involved all during the pandemic. You were online doing stuff, and that was fantastic. Some of you could not get that involved and you weren't online doing things in terms of school-wide things, but you did things for your community. You went down the street and you helped out an elderly neighbor. You donated masks, you donated hand sanitizers. So all of those things matter. All of those things were improvement and things that just recently happened, to our community. In our school. So I think that it's really important that you think about who you are, what you cared about, what you did, and how it made a difference. That's how you're going to answer that question. But there's nothing too small to write about in this category. It could be, like I said, some kids were at home working with their 3 or 4 year old, sibling. Some with their family, doing things in family way, helping out family members understand what COVID is about, helping family members be safe. That is a community as well. So I think that this is really open, broad for all of you. Some kids did, stand up for racial justice. Some kids did, join the club, organize fundraisers, and notice compost on campus, or campus started a program on campus. So all of these are so the improved school or community is basically action things that you've done this year that you cared about, whether it's in school or outside of school. It was some action you took to improve, okay? And beyond what has already been stated, what makes you a strong candidate. I always tease the UC admission staff about this one because, how would you know the big pool that you're getting into? And as the UCs, of course, is a very large, talented pool of kids. Sometimes on every campus, 86,000, right? It is a catch-all one. A lot of kids like to write about it because it's not specific for them. It's not improving school. It's not academic interest. And they think they can write about anything that makes them a strong candidate. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, the UCs is where they've got to believe that you are a strong candidate. You got to convince them that something you got, something that's happening with you is new, is fresh, and it's interesting in their pool about you that you've done. I've had kids who started companies. I always thought that, you started a company, you can write about that. That's something that's fresh and new, right? However, in the UC pool, there's so many kids that start companies. So, are you going to be, will that make you a strong candidate? Maybe not. So number 8 is one you really got to flesh out and ask a lot of questions about and brainstorm about. And hopefully what makes you a strong candidate. And when you put your ideas out there, it will resonate with, some of the grown-ups who know you well and go, wow, that really makes you stand out. Because again, Olympians are going to show up in this category, right? People who contribute to the school in many, many ways are going to show up in this category. The kids who have been working on original research are going to show up in this category. And you have to ask yourself, what I'm doing, will it be, strong enough to make me a strong candidate among those type of students? So this is the one you're going to approach with lots of caution and lots of thought. It can be cultural, social identity, life experiences, but definitely it should be one that stands out and make the UCs go, wow, that kid is the kid we want in our pool because of what they put down in this particular essay, okay? So the next steps, brainstorming and reflection, thinking about yourself as a person who wants to go to college, as a person that can bring something to the college campus. The college essay guide has several guided activities that can help you. It doesn't help to put the work in to thinking about what you want to write about. That's why we're starting early. You have time. You really do have time. We want you to put your time into it. Drafts, you're going to write them. I'm hoping that the moment that you guys finish up with us today, that you would go online and sign up for essay one-on-one with me and get your Google Doc together with me. And we're going to start working over the summer in crafting and drafting those essays. So I hope after this meeting to see many, many of you signed up for a college essay support. And we'll do it through shared Google Doc. Last summer, I went in with kids 3 to 4 times a day, giving feedback, helping them edit, talking, sometimes having a Zoom to talk in person and make sure that the student was understanding what was asked of them of the prompt, and just working until it gets done. Revise, polish, and then you're going to walk away from it. This is not an essay for the Common App. This is not an essay that you have 650 words to articulate who you are. You have 350 words for each prompt out, and you must answer the prompt. And you heard what Miss Davis said. You know, this is not the essay that you need to take us all the way back, you know, to your family roots, or to, you know, tell us that a leaf fell down from a tree and you thought that you wanted, you know, to get involved in climate change. This is not that essay. This is the essay that you answer the prompt as directly as you can. And oftentimes when I work with students, I interview them. We sit down and I ask them questions, because that's what it's like. This essay should be like an interview. And at the end of the day, you should feel that when you walked away from this essay, that you've given your best interview. And that's how I tell students, you know that you've done well when you walk away and say, wow, I've answered what they asked me to answer in the best way I can. And there should be no questions about your essay. You should answer them all within 350 words. So that's what we're going to be doing next, guys. I hope that you will definitely go on and sign up so we can get busy and start working. I would just also caution all of you that, you know, when you're thinking about getting primary resources and primary support, it wouldn't be your 17-year-old friend in this. This is serious business. So you really want to make sure that you approach in a serious way and you work with someone who know what they're doing, the grown-ups who've seen these before. And Miss David is right. I worked with Miss David now for about 7 years. I've been on UC Davis campus many, many times, but I also been at Berkeley. I've been at UCLA. I've done admissions read for Berkeley for 2 years, the freshman class. So I do know what that essay should look like. And I can help you and will help you if you show up and sign up and work with me this summer and Mr. Duran. The reason why Mr. Duran is going to be doing activities, because I noticed when I read activities last year that students were not articulating and advocating for themselves throughout their activities. When I tried to match what happened with the students' application, they looked great academically, their essays were great. I got to one part of the essay and it was those activities. So Mr. Duran is going to be the expert on making sure that when you write your next activities list, it's going to be reflective of who you are. And there won't be a question about what you did, how long you did it, why. Those are the things that she's going to take you through next. So pay attention and remember, it all matters in the UC application, okay? And we'll help you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. All right. So just to talk about the activities list. So we have the personal insight questions, and from the workshop earlier today, Ms. David was saying that your courses, your transcripts, so the grades that you earned in those courses, and then the activities list, these are all sort of, you know, factual bits of information. But with the activities list, you also get a little bit of space to give context. So like Ms. Price was just saying, it's super helpful to take advantage of that space. So for the activities list, oh, sorry, I'm on campus, so you guys can hear some bell going off. It's the activities list is showing what you've done. So keywords to think about here, it's your leadership, it's your responsibility, it's your impact. So that's really what we want to kind of try to highlight. And then for those of you that are applying to private or out-of-state schools that are also using the Common App or the Coalition app, I'm just going to focus on the Common App here. So there are some differences between the UC activities list and the Common App activities list. So on the UC application, you'll have 20 free spaces, and each one of those 20 gives you 500 characters to use, versus the Common App where you'll have 10 spaces and 150 character description. And then you have a place for 5 honors and awards. So you have 5 additional spaces on the UC application than you do for the Common App, and you have significantly more characters in the UC application to describe them. Okay, so getting into that a bit more. So when you're actually working on the activities list, you're going to be needing to think how many hours per week and weeks per year you spent on that activity. So at the very bottom of this slide, there's an action item, which is I want you to create a Google Doc right now, labeled with your name and then UC activities list. And then you can either do it in a Google Sheet or you could do it in a Google Doc, whichever format you prefer working in. But the key thing is hours per week and weeks per year. So there's a big difference between I worked as a peer tutor for 2 hours, 2 weeks last summer versus I worked as a peer tutor for 4 hours a week for 32 weeks for 3 years. It's easy to see the difference there. And so that will be something that you're including on your activities list. So it can't hurt to start brainstorming that. Then the other big bolded point here is the position and the organization name. So it could be peer tutor, Los Altos High School, or it could be mentor and then your community-based organization name like the YMCA or Boys and Girls Club. So you want to, or it could be lifeguard or assistant or whatever it might be, but the position name and then the organization name. And then you have 60 character max here. So that's also another area where we can include some more information depending on how we format it. And then you're going to draft a description, including your responsibilities, any honors or accomplishments. And so anyone can Google what the YMCA is, but it's more like, why did you choose to work at the YMCA? Or what did you get out of working at the YMCA? Who did you interact with there? What kind of responsibilities did you gain over time? Were you promoted? Did you work in a few different areas? So that's the kind of questions that I'll be asking you, but it's really helpful if you have a draft first, because then I can look at it and then I can say, oh, is this what you did? And then you're like, yeah, that's part of what I did, but I also did X, Y, and Z. Then we kind of flesh that out a bit more versus starting with a blank sheet of paper. The other thing that often comes up with students is, does this count? And I would say, take your brain and put all of the things that you think might apply and put it down on your draft. So it could be, taking care of pets at home or siblings at home, or taking charge of like the cooking or housekeeping while your family was doing other things, especially during the pandemic. So just put what you spend your time doing on your activities list, regardless of if you think it's formal or informal, and then we'll work on that together. So however you spend your time or however you have spent your time over the last few years, that's your activities list. And then the UC application will ask you to choose from one of these following 6 categories when you enter this activity in August 1 when the app opens. So it's either awards or honors, educational preparation programs, extracurricular activities, other coursework, volunteering or community service, or work experience. So we'll figure out where to put each of your activities once you've brainstormed those out. And so then again, you're familiar with the action item that I've given you. You don't have to do it right this second, but please make a note on your notes. Like, I need to create a Google Doc or a Google Sheet where I'm going to start tracking my activities if you haven't already. If you have a resume, make sure it's updated, and then you can kind of morph that resume into this activities list. You could just start writing descriptions, make a copy, and then you don't have to start from scratch. Okay, the other big thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is researching campuses. So as we know, there's one application for all 9 of the undergraduate campuses, but it is worthwhile for you to get on the school's website and then look at the different academic programs, check out student life, and kind of get a feel for which campuses you actually want to apply to. So I think there's kind of 3 different camps you can be in. One is I'm going to apply to all 9 UCs because I'm going to, I'm going to apply to all 9. I've talked to my family about it. That's the direction I'm going to go. But that can get really expensive for a lot of students. So if your family's not able to pay the $70 times 9, for the UCs, then you need to be a little bit more selective on which campuses you're going to apply to. And that's where doing some research can really benefit you. So it's researching, would that be a good fit for you? Do you want to be on a campus that's closer to home? Are you okay with going a little bit further away? Do you want to be on the coast? Do you prefer to be inland? Do they have the academic program that you're interested in? And then that's also where Miss Price is going to come in to say, if you only get a certain number of schools that you're going to apply to for the UCs, which one from your profile are you most likely, maybe some target ones? All the UCs are very competitive, but what UCs would she recommend be on your list? And then which one might you get to sort of pick and plug 1 or 2 kind of reaches, on there. So that's a definite conversation with Ms. Price. And then using Naviance. So on Naviance, the cool thing about that is that you have Los Altos High School data specifically available to you versus when you do just a general Google search, or when you use Big Futures, which I also really like as a research tool. Big Futures is great, but it's sort of general. And so a student, your cousin that lives in Massachusetts, if they go on Big Futures, they're getting the same exact information about the college as you are. But on Naviance, you're looking at information that is some data that's specific to Los Altos. So you can see our student outcomes over the last few years and how that's been for them. Okay, the third thing when you're looking at researching campuses is really lean into social media. So I know a lot of students don't have their own social media accounts. Maybe talk to your family or consider getting an account that you don't really post things on, but that you can use to view other you could view the accounts of these other organizations. So whether that be Instagram or Twitter, um, I find that a lot of the colleges have very active Instagram accounts. And so you could follow their at admissions or at the university. And then you can also use geotags. So if you look up San Diego State University, or sorry, we're talking about the UCs. If you look at UC San Diego and you click on the geotag, you can see what's going on campus today or what stories have people shared, and get a view of the campus and hear what people are saying, see what they're up to. And I think that can be an interesting way to get a feel for a campus. The last part on here, one of the sort of silver linings to the pandemic is everyone pivoted really quickly into providing a lot of online resources. And so now more than ever, colleges are hosting these amazing workshops about how to write the personal insight question, or how to apply for financial aid or scholarships, or what's the first generation student experience, or what is it like to be a woman in STEM, or for computer science majors. So go on those websites and look at the workshops that they're offering, student panels, other types of events. And if you're ever given the option of entering your information, if you're truly interested in that school, or you think you might be, I encourage you to put your real information in there, because they will send you emails or notifications. I know some students are like, I just don't want that many emails. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you're about to start applying to colleges, and email is going to become a way of life between now and through graduation. It's going to be the way that you're getting information from us on campus. It's also going to be a way for colleges to let you know when they're going to be visiting or what kind of workshops they're offering. So I encourage you to embrace email, just stay on top of it, delete the things that don't matter, and then kind of make an action item for the things that do. Okay, so that's researching campuses. All right, so then I just took two screenshots about the resources that I was just referencing. So on the left-hand side, you can see a screenshot from Naviance, and I'm looking at University of California, San Diego. So here, once you type in UC San Diego in Naviance college search, you'll then see this little search bar, and if you click on admissions, you'll be able to look and see over the last few years how many students applied and then how many students were accepted. And you can kind of get a sense, and that's Los Altos specific. And then right beneath it, there's also something called scattergrams. And so you can kind of see over the years, a lot of students have applied, and you can kind of see based on the key, who has been accepted or not. Sure, there's some irregularities, as you can see, there's like some outliers there. But for the most part, you get a general sense of where things are at. And then for Big Futures, that's the other website that I referenced, which I think is great for really quick information lookup. And you can see on the left-hand side, this at a glance, the deadlines, majors and learning environment, campus life, applying, how paying. And then the cool thing on the right-hand side is they also show you students who are looking at UC San Diego are also looking at these other schools, which I think can sometimes be helpful. Like, oh, okay, like I hadn't heard of this school. Let me look at it. I'm sure most of us have also heard of UCLA, but students that are looking at UC San Diego are also looking at UCLA. The reason why I picked UC San Diego specifically for my example is because on the UC application, you need to rank the college that you want to be in for UC San Diego specifically. That's the one different thing about the UC app is the San Diego has colleges. And a student asked me yesterday, like, what's the difference between college and university? So in this context, there's the University of California, just like you can think about there's Los Altos High School. And within Los Altos High School, we have the science department, the math department, the English department, the world language department. So at UC San Diego and at other universities, they'll have the College of Engineering, or the College of Arts and Sciences, or the College of Life Sciences, or so they call these different departments colleges, and then within the college there's a bunch of majors that are listed. But at UC San Diego, the college system is interesting because it's where you live, it's the traditions that you have, and then it's not specific to your major. So you could be in a college with students with all sorts of different majors. So it's different than the other 8 campuses in that way, and you should research it. So if you're applying to UC San Diego and Miss Price asks you in September, oh, which college are you think you're gonna, what's your ranking for the colleges? And you say, what? That tells us you did not do your research. So really look into some of these schools and know what you're applying, where you're applying, and why. Okay, that's my soapbox moment. Moving on, this is a screenshot from the College and Career Center website. There's a page called Summer College Support. And so you can see that that's right up here on the top. You all made it here, so you all know, but bonus points if you share with your friends who aren't here. If you go to this page, you can see that today we had the UC workshop listed. There's a register now link. Then the webinar that you're sitting in right now, that is listed here with the Zoom link. Next up, we have a workshop, Paying for College and Affordability, hosted by Illinois College. A director of admissions is going to come speak to students about talking about paying for their education, and that'll be at 12 o'clock, and there's the Zoom link there. Then we're going to have an EOP program overview that's specifically targeted for students who are first generation or will have some financial need for college. So again, encourage students who that might be a consideration to join that workshop. But take a look on this page. If you scroll past all of the scheduled workshops, then you're going to see a section that has Miss Price's availability for this summer, including her Sign Up Genius links for one-on-one appointments, which she referenced at the beginning of this meeting. She said, start working on your drafts, make an appointment with me, share it with me, we can go over it. So you feel free to share your draft essays without setting up an appointment. And then just know that if you also want to set up a time to talk one-on-one, or if you haven't already spoken with her, you want to make an appointment on there. And then at the very bottom of that is my link, and you can schedule an appointment with me to talk about your activities list. I can help you answer general questions about the college process or getting these apps going, things like that. So we're both very available to help you. And so here's just another page of what's coming up. So we have the Paying for College, we have the EOP presentation. We'll follow up with that with something similar to this, kind of debriefing, brainstorming, answering some more questions. And then there's the Common App essay. That one was just added. That'll be on July 7th. So you can hear how to approach the Common App essay, which is different than the UC personal insight questions. And then if other workshops are added, we're going to add it to that web page, and I'll be posting it on the Instagram. So if you're not already following, which I'm guessing all of you in here are, but it's LOS_Altos_CCC. And that's where we'll continue posting updates. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. So you can kind of make a note of that. So if you have questions, let's go into the chat, and you can send them to everyone or to me. And okay.
So, Laura, I just wanted to tell the
Yeah.
students that the reason why we start with the UC essays is because it gives us so many windows into you that by the time that you get ready to write your Common App essay, you will have a sense of who you are and have a reflective way of writing about who you are, which makes your Common App essay much stronger. A lot of students start with a Common App essay because they're applying to one school in particular. They want to do an early decision. But I think that from my experience in working with Los Altos kids, that's been the hardest essay to get started on. Whereas with the UC essays with 4 different prompts, it's usually 1 or 2 that kids can go right to and write about, and it really gets the juices flowing. And there'll be plenty of time for your Common App essay, even if you apply early decision or early action. Plenty of time to get started on that if you start on your UCs. It'll just give you a better sense of who you are and what you want colleges to know about you. The Common App essay is 650 words. And I think that's much longer, but it still has to have some content about who you are in there. And if you haven't done that work in brainstorming and writing about those things earlier, then it becomes a little more difficult, I have found, with kids to articulate that in the Common App essay. So there is no rush. We have plenty of time, guys. We do this every year, and kids make the deadlines every year. So I think that to slow down, we have more students applying from Los Altos High School to the UC system-wide than we do private colleges in this country. And more of you will attend a UC than you will a private college in this country. So we really want you to put some emphasis on that UC writing and make sure you have the strongest application that you can put out there. I strongly believe last year and the years before, one area that Los Altos kids were not very clear about were their activities. That's why Miss Duran is focusing on those bad boys. The other thing was that they put so much into their Common App that by the time they got to write their UCs, they rushed them. And then they didn't get certain UCs and couldn't figure out why. But once I would call a UC campus and just chat in about a particular student and would get a little feedback. And clearly it had to do with the writing. So we really want you guys to prioritize this summer. And I promise you, if you work hard on the UC's essays, you will have a benchmark to move forward in your private applications as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great. Okay, so anyone, you could direct message Ms. Price or me in the chat with any questions related. So unlike at the UC Personal Insight question workshop, we can answer any questions you might have about getting started, about the college process. Okay, so here's a question. Is there additional essay writing prompt other than the PIQs for the UC application? And the answer is no, not unless the additional information section. I think there's an optional like COVID section that will still remain for next year, but otherwise there's no additional writing for the UCs.
So there is one area that they can give more information. And I mean, COVID, they aren't asking you that if you're only affected by COVID, but that's an area where they can put in more information. You just can't put repetitive information. If you've already written about it in your prompts, you shouldn't put any extra information in. There is one other section that they can write about. And it says anything else that you want them to know, that you haven't mentioned before. I'll give you some examples of students who've had serious conditions, medical conditions, and they wrote about the challenge, right? But then they didn't have time to write about where they are now. And if they're seeing medical doctors in the area, one, the UCs understand why they're choosing California colleges, because they can't leave California. So it has to be some significant information that you left out that you want them to know more about yourself. And you definitely need to talk to me or Miss Duran before you fill out that extra section, okay?
Great. Okay, another question that came through. So if a student mentions something in their activities list or in their personal insight question about, let's say, the YMCA or another organization, would the readers do a Google search to see what it is?
Well, it depends. It depends. You're supposed to give them enough information about the why. So are you trying to say, will they do a Google search to see if it exists? Is that what you're asking? To see if it...
I think can you respond to both? So one is like, I think expand upon what you're saying. Like a layman should be able to understand what you're referencing in your essay. So avoid too many acronyms. Like you should, your grandma or somebody else should know like what you're referencing in your essay. And then the second one is, can you talk about like an audit of activities? Like what happened? Okay.
It's funny that you asked that, because UC will do a random audit, and they've done that every other year, and you don't know when it's coming. You'll know when they call you up and say, I checked this out and you were not enrolled there. So you want to be totally honest with your descriptions, totally honest in what you do. And the fact is that a lot of the people on the admissions staff have lived in California all their lives. So you want to make sure that you don't write things that are not true. When I did admissions, I rarely knew certain areas and I knew certain programs. And if you wrote about it in a different way, I would go, that's not what they do there. So you just be honest, totally honest about whatever you've done. Don't embellish, don't make up things. Be true to what you've done, okay?
Great points. Okay, another question came through about availability. So Miss Price has availability in June and July. If you go on the webpage, you can see on her Sign Up Genius what those days are, but it's basically like most of the summer with like pots of time. So it's like, check that out. And then same for me, I will not be available the last 2 weeks of July, but back early August. So you won't, if you all look at that now, make appointments now, you'll have plenty of time to get support. Mhm. Can I, Ms. Price, can you speak a little bit to, this is not a student question, but a graduating senior said the one thing that they wish they would have realized is that there are, if you're applying to the UCs and private schools, that it's not just the Common App essay, but also supplemental essays. They just didn't expect that. Could you speak just to the kind of overall, like what kind of writing people might expect to do if they're applying to more than just the UC?
Absolutely. So with the Common App essay, every institution has a supplemental application. And the more competitive the institution is, the more in-depth the responses they're going to look for and have more questions than schools that are not as competitive. So I'll just take Yale. Yale will have short statements, 150 words each. Some are 4. They have 4 of them. Sometimes they will have just about 6 or 7 little single ones that they want to add, like, what movie do you like? What do you do in your free time? What was the most significant summer experience you took? And they'll give you like 50 words to say it, or 150. So there are a lot of extra writing for certain colleges. And then there are some colleges that just use the Common App essay. And to me, the difference has been the more selective, the more they want you writing about your own experience, answering their questions, the less selective they will take the generic Common App. But if you're looking for schools that will be admitting students at, less than, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 percentile, 30 percentile, you will be writing at least one other essay. And it could be 350 words, 500 words. I think University of Michigan gives you 500 words. So every college is going to be different, but every college that is selected will want more writing out of you. And so, yes, you can write, 3 or 4 little more essays for one college having written the large essay, the 651. I also want to bring out that in the Common App application itself, because it is a generic application. So that 650 word essay will go to every college on your list that's in the Common App. But there's also a 650 space for an essay or a statement that, if you want to write something else about yourself that you didn't include in your application, for extra information, you still can add it into the Common App as well. So both UC and Common App allows you a space, if you have not mentioned something before, to allow you to have one more time to say something that you may have left out, okay? The Common App, 650 words. The UC was 500. We'll have to check and see if it shows up in the application, but it used to be 500 words for UC, 650 for a Common App. Extra information that you did not include into the generic application. But every selective school in the country will want you to write more.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions from students? Now's a great chance before we break up for a little while and go about the brainstorming and the process. Anything else that you can think of? Anything that you have questions about or concerns or things you're excited about? Do you feel like you know what to do next? Okay, I'll get you all involved to make sure you're not just sleeping. When does the UC application open? When can you actually create the UC app, your UC application account? You can just drop it in the chat. When's the first day that you can
August 1st.
Yes, great. Yes, that's the date. So if you don't have it
Kay,
already.
did you get
it? Yes. So put it in your calendars if you don't already have it. Make a note, but you're doing this work in advance. So that way, when August 1st rolls around, you create your account, you put in your information. Maybe even at that point, you can cut and paste your PIQs in there, or you can cut and paste your activities list, and then you can focus on the other apps, or maybe you're done. Maybe you just start your senior year and it's like, you're ready to go. You press send when November 1 hits, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios.
I got one for them.
Yeah.
Will the UCs require recommendations?
Great question. Okay, answer, Ms. Price. Does the UC require letters of recommendation?
Come on, guys.
They're direct messaging me. I've gotten 3 no's. So 3 anonymous no's.
Great.
And that's correct.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, and then I got one that says only Berkeley, and that's only by request, and that's after you've already applied. So
That is perfect. Wow. I'm glad you knew that. That's perfect. Okay, I have another one. What about eligibility in the local context? Who
ooh.
knows what that is?
I'm not getting anything.
Well, the UCs have a program called eligibility in the local context, and it will be for students who will eventually be in the top 9% of the state, but in the beginning, in the top 15% of their high school. So how you get enrolled in that is that you already are going to be enrolled in that by Miss Duran, I believe. If she's sending in your grades and your for at the end of the year, your grades will go in, and you won't hear anything from them until you'll get a permission to be a part of EL. It's eligibility in local context. The acronym is ELC, and if you want to know more about it, you can Google it on the UC website and just look for ELC or type out eligibility in the local context. And it's not for everybody, but you'll know that you're part of it when you get a little email from Ms. Duran, because you would have to qualify for the top 15%.
I think it might actually be coming from somebody up at the front office, but
Oh,
yes,
okay.
but that's okay. The bottom line is if you're a part of that, it just means that you will be able to get admitted to one of the 9 campuses. But for the most part, our top 9% don't. We do well at the UCs.
Yeah. But just in case you get something like that, it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a particular UC. That was going to be the conversation.
Right.
That, students always tell me, Ms. Price, I got something from UCs. They say I'm in the top 15% of my high school. That's a great thing. Lovely, right? And it's not a ranking, by the way. So you cannot go out and tell any private school that I've been ranked, in the top 15% of my school, because the ranking is only based on 10th and 11th. It's not a real ranking. Real ranking comes from 9th through 11th. For all, if you're going to rank it all in the country, it's 9th through 11th. But because we do it for the UCs, and it's only 10th and 11th. So first, you can't use a ranking for anything else but UCs. And second, you're not guaranteed a particular campus, even if you make the top 9% in the state, which you will hear about only if you apply to UCs and you submit your application. Once you do that, you'll get an email from the UC saying you're in the top 9%, or you'll get an email saying you're on track, but you didn't make the top 9% in the state. First, you clear the bar for the high school, top 15%. Then if you apply to the UCs and your application goes in, they will see if you clear the bar for the top 9% in the state. But it's all done by UCs. The high school just provide the GPAs in the beginning, but we have nothing to do with who get chosen or how that information is used on the UC end. It's all a UC statewide program. But I don't want to be concerned about you're not going to get a UC because you got ELC, because admissions offices throughout the UCs do not use ELC for admissions.
Right.
So they're not going to be looking to see if you got ELC before they make a decision on you. That's just something extra, if you get it. And that's wonderful and great. And like Mr. Rand said, you'll be guaranteed a UC. But in order to do that, you're going to have to apply to all 9 of them, because you just can't apply to UCLA, San Diego, and Berkeley and say, wow, I got the top 9%, so I'm going to have to get one of those campuses. That's not how it works. Even if you apply to 3 UCs and you don't apply to them all, and you get ELC and you don't get San Diego or UCLA or Berkeley, what you'll get is a letter from the ELC committee saying, if you want to apply to Riverside or be considered for Merced, let us know. So it won't be for a particular campus. It will be, your admissions will go in the same. If you don't get one, if you apply to 4, you don't get the 4, you could get a letter from ELC saying, there's 4 other campuses. Would you like to be considered for those, since you are an ELC candidate? And again, not admissions, to be considered for it, okay?
Excellent. So thank you, Ms. Price. We're at 2:30. If there's any last questions, please put them in. Otherwise, we thank you all for coming today and for truly being on top of it, because we know that you're here and you've paid attention to the emails and to the reminders, and you're taking the time out of your early summer to get a jump start. And so that's going to really pay off for you. So we're so glad you're here. I'm just waiting to see if any more questions pop through. All right, so then the next items for you are just to create a draft of your activities list, have a draft of your personal insight questions, sign up for meetings with Ms. Price and with me, sign up for the future workshops. We're around. Email us those documents. Hey, I just drafted these 4. Ms. Price, can you take a look? She'll get back to you. Same thing with me. Like, Ms. Duran, here's the shared document with your name. Don't forget, don't send us just PIQ, right? Your name, personal insight questions, so that way we can kind of see it. And yeah, you guys are, congratulations, you're seniors now. So keep up all the good work that you're doing and chip away at this. And by the time summer's over, you're going to be so grateful that you've gotten this work done before fall starts. And just keep updating your Naviance. So as you are deciding on schools, colleges I'm thinking about, colleges I'm applying to, you can put them on either list. If you know for sure you're going to apply to college I'm applying to. If you're still working through your list and debating, put it on college I'm thinking about. It's really easy to move that over. Okay.
And one last thing, please make sure that you make your own decisions. No one should choose a college for you or tell you shouldn't apply to a college. Please trust yourselves, trust your parents, apply to the colleges you want to go to. It's really important now because this is the biggest decision you're going to have to make. And it should be your decision. It shouldn't be listening to someone telling you what's a good school or what's not a good school. You decide for yourself and you talk to parents you trust. Someone, in your life that you trust that knows you, a grown-up, and make your decisions. And I guarantee you, Mr. Rand and I will help you get there. We'll help you have the best application you possibly can and make sure you have the best opportunity to be considered as a strong candidate. That's our job. It's what we do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. One last thing. Los Altos does well with the UCs. So work with us and you can see the data from last year. Like, so you're in the right place. You're doing the right things. Okay. With that, we'll end. We'll see you all soon.
Yep. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everyone.